Hello, everyone. In this video, we're speaking with Mario Rodriguez about his model, Green Consumption Tipping Point. Thanks for being here, Mario.
Thank you for inviting me, Sean.
So I guess we'll begin by just talking about the purpose of your model. What is the Green Consumption Tipping Point model?
Good. Well, the model explores how green consumption can tip from being a niche behavior to becoming mainstream or dominant. What I was interested is to know what happened when even when we start from a point of weak preferences, in this case environmental preferences, if we can manage through um, something that in economics we call salience, peer influence, we can manage to tip and go from a weak preferences to make, as I said, the weak the dominant. Um, the model itself is not a predictive model, is what we call an explanatory model. It's a theoretical model. And the idea is not only for myself, but for researchers to tune and change different aspects if they wish to do so and see different outcomes. The models, what it shows was combine a small mechanism like green labels, what we call in economic salience, which is basically how evident something is. Here in Europe, for instance, all the green product they have to be labeled, and there is a lot of regulation in regards of we have to say companies they have to specify what it is. No, um, salience, habit, peer influence, policy incentives, which I'm going to discuss that very soon. And the idea was trying to understand if this mechanism they can reinforce each other to produce a collective transition. Um, then what we're expecting is a certain level of consumption. Then we're going to apply price incentive, which is called a Pikovian tax or incentive, which is basically in this simulation, brown products, the one that they're not ecologic, they're
Hmm.
going to have a tax, and the product that they're green, they're going to have a subsidy
Okay.
to make them more attractive. The model shows that consumption goes up, and then what we're going to try to predict, and I'm going to explain soon how that it works, if after the subsidy is removed, we have something called hysteresis, which is basically not coming back to the previous behavior. If this new, if you want new fashion, to call it in a simple terms, either stays in time
Hmm.
or not. Um, how the model runs is two firms and 500 households. One firm is greener than the other one, is offers what we call a blended product, a blended offers of product. 70% are green products and the other 30% are browns. And the second company is 30% green and 70% brown. Um, household, in this case, we have 500 households. They consume, and this is a very strong assumption in economics, 1 unit per household. Okay. And this is something that we use a lot in economics to try to simplify and to create models that they tend to be representative of what we hope is real life. What they decide, they have 1 unit of consumption, they always consume 1 unit. Yeah. And what they decide is how it's going to split in this basket of product. It could be 0.7 to firm number one and zero point 0.3 to firm number two. And all these different households, they are going to have different preferences. Yeah? Some of them, they're going to be very, very strong environmental conscious, if you want. The other one, they're going to be to the other extreme. And we have a whole shape. I created a beta distribution for this because I wanted this to be a little bit skewed from one side or the other one for these different household. No?
Hmm.
And then firms on the other side, they do have a tax on brown product and they have a subsidy on green product. They calculate the price, and what the simulation does is aggregates everything. Yeah? Let's say we have 500 units, is 70% of that went to firm one. That means 350 units of consumption they go to firm one, and the other 150 to firm two. And what the model does, it keeps in a sort of Monte Carlo, if you want, simulation, going for a different number of cycles, and we track the evolution of the consumption in this simulation.
Okay. Yeah, it sort of reminds me of the US's well, I guess this would be an example where it seems like somebody cut off the subsidy, but the US had a subsidy for electric vehicles for a while.
Hmm.
And I think with the same idea of, making things more green, but I would suspect that the subsidy was turned off, well before, or I guess it was turned off before a tipping point, since we don't all have electric cars in the States. And so, yeah, I guess that would be an interesting like niche case for your model is at what point, you know, turning it off in the middle,
Yeah.
what happens to if the subsidy goes away too early versus
Yeah. Having a tipping point doesn't mean there is hysteresis, because what we expect to happen, and it does make sense what you're saying, we expect at some point that the price structure in the market will change towards that. We
okay.
still need the benefit. We still need we need a tipping point for hysteresis to exist, but not the other way around. There's no what we want is after a certain period of time, which is exactly what you were saying, we expect the firms, in this case, to change the price structure and start serving the market if you
Hmm.
want the new demand, uh, because of the incentive that they get. Then the government we should be able to remove this subsidy in some way, and the new pattern of consumption will reflect that. But the firms are not going to get this incentive per se. It may get it, but in a really, really, really long period. And what we're trying to do in these cases, as you said, on the electric vehicle, is to address, and I'm sure you're familiar with this term, with negative externalities. No, we want to intervene the market in
Hmm.
some way to address these negative externalities, sorry, and push consumers and firms, both the offer and the demand side, to do the right thing and consume something more
Okay.
green. And I use quote because it's a strong term in economics, the right thing, no? Because it depends on who's telling the story.
Sure. Yeah. If you're an oil executive, it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
So, I guess the models is intentionally abstract, but what were some of the challenges, I guess, or is that the challenge then, creating an abstract model? What are some of the challenges about this model?
Uh, in, I, get the main challenge for me, not in this model, in another that I have created, and I'm sure this happened to yourself and any other people working with agent-based modeling, is embedding the economic theory into the code. Um, because I'm very conscious. I, Personally, I don't use NetLogo. I use Python for my
Yeah,
simulation,
yeah,
which gives me a lot of flexibility. It also takes a lot of, if you want, technical skill, no?
yeah.
Um, but once you manage to do it, I mean, Python is an object-oriented programming, and it's really good for agent-based modeling. No, because we can create different classes, different entities. We give them different abilities. They can learn. They can remember what happened in the past. And it kind of feel, I remember when I've done my first simulation, it kind of felt like a software thing, like I'm almost like a game. But I have to remember myself, is not a game. This is part of what is my PhD. And this is a paper that this simulation is part of a paper that is published in a Q1 paper
Oh, cool.
in AVM simulation. Then it has to be it has to be well done, but not just on the technical way. It has to make sense. No, I'm sure. I mean, you're a
Yeah.
doctor. You know the process of peer review papers. They ask a lot of questions. Why? And you have to justify about everything. No, and for me, what's the theory? I have to think carefully how household they make decision, how the utility function has to be defined, how the carbon taxes they work. One of the things that haven't explained into now at the beginning, but the fund they do have something that economists they call learning style, and what they do they adjust the markup based on the price elasticity of demand, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically what it means is price elasticity of demand. It means how much it changed the demand of my product if I change a little bit the price. If it's very elastic, it means like I change a little bit and my demand falls a lot. And if it's very inelastic, it means like I can vary the price a lot and the demand is not going to change.
Okay.
Which means for this firm in this simulation, they need to calculate the elasticity because if they are going to lose a lot of consumers, a lot of demand, the markup is going to be little. And if the demand is going to be very inelastic, which in this case it isn't, um, the markup is going to be higher. And I have to create that formula, no? Which is a well-known formula in economics, but it has to be everything embedded in the simulation, no? And I
Yeah.
think it was 80% of the time thinking and really writing and checking, like double checking, triple checking everything. And then the last part, it was just writing the code and running the simulation, basically.
Yeah.
It was a lot of perspiration, if you want, first.
Yeah. I definitely think sometimes just creating an agent-based model, you gain such a better understanding of what you're studying in the first place.
Absolutely.
You know, just to be able to put it into code is like, you know, is a different
Mm.
level of understanding. Um,
Yeah.
so I think you've sort of maybe already highlighted them, but could you describe some of the insights from your model?
Um, that's a good question. The main insight. Well, as I said, tipping point, we can, and there's a few papers that they have analyzed tipping points. And if you put, and anyone is interested in tipping points, they can make a really quick Google search about tipping points, especially in environmental studies, is going to show up a lot.
Yeah.
I think the most important part it was the hysteresis part that we showed that what I want to be, what I think my model shows and the paper that I'm publishing is is a confirmation of what we know in theory. Because it's easy to say something, especially in economic, that there is a lot of contradictory theories. No, is to show that yes, tipping points they can happen with the right structure and the right incentives. As I said, what we call Pigovian taxis, and we can change it, but we need the underlying price structure to change. And I think this model in particular, and one of the outcome is really useful because although it's a theoretical model, it can, with real data, I hope, either myself, maybe in the future, or other researchers, we can do exactly what you said at the beginning, which I thought that you were reading my mind, because what we could do with the actual piece of data is to calculate for how long we need certain incentives to work to create this tipping point. Because we're talking about a lot of information. We're talking about um, peer influence, we're talking about personal preferences, we're talking about salience. There is a lot. I think that the topic is massive because although this is a theoretical model, we can link with another things. No, um,
Yeah.
it's a matter of education as well. Here in the UK, we have, um, and I'm referring particularly now to green consumption to food. We have something in a school since 1992, food technology, where we teach students in primary school, I think between the ages of 11 and 12, how to cook. Yeah, because it's not just a matter of my preferences. There's something that sociologists they call obesogenic environment, which is the environment that predisposes us to be obese, basically. If I go to the high street and everything that I have here in London is fish and chip or fried food or something that is not really good,
Yeah.
yes, there's always a certain level of responsibility, but the environment it does count. No? Do I have access to healthy food? Do I have education at work? The government does the right incentive. Do they have an option? Do we have also um, yes, we can go to a farmer's market, but can I afford that? There is a difference also in income, what people on higher incomes they can afford, or people in lower incomes they can afford.
Yeah.
Um, which is a bit passionate about the topic, no? But I
Yeah.
think that that's
We have the
one of
same issue
the
in the States
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
Um, it can be it's a nice theoretical reinforcement. This paper in particular, it makes sense in the context of my research, because my research is linked with personal preferences. Um, in economic simulation. In fact, there is another model now sitting with the COMSES, which is an AVM model with analyzes personal preferences in labor market.
Okay.
And there's another paper, but that paper is already written, but there's another paper that I'm also writing, which is green preferences. Um, I'm not using agent-based modeling. I'm using GNNs, graphic neural networks, to
Yeah.
try to do a similar prediction on adoptions of heat pump here in the UK.
Okay.
That's something that is coming soon, basically. But yeah, basically that's the idea. The policy interventions such carbon tax, green subsidy can be understood as a temporary catalyst. They help us to go through the initial threshold and they change the price structure. Because this is like a flow. We have a policy that affect the unit cost. The unit cost affect the price, the household demand, the demand affects the elasticity of demand, and the elasticity of demand affects the markup of the funds. And we go back in circles. And being able to show this, if you want, this well-known theory and apply it. And I invite people to the model is available, not to download it and play with it. I think is nice, it's interesting, and
Yeah.
it's good.
Do you think so I guess I don't even know if this exists. In the US, we have access to census data, so it's sort of abstract information about economics, about number of people in the household and that kind of thing. Uh, and I've used that as sort of the general basis for an agent-based model. Is there any data like that in the UK that you could sort of say, okay, I want to model the adoption of heat pumps in London, and I know this is the the number of people who might use a heat pump. This is the amount
Mhm.
of people that have the financial means to install it. Do you have that kind of data available to you when
We
you're
do.
yeah,
Is the official national statistic. I think if there is two countries that I love going through the statistic, one is the USA and the other one is the UK, because the amount of information that there is available is just, look, I'm having goosebumps. Is lovely. Getting accent is a little bit tricky. Um, we have, and I just completed one. Um, we have to apply with, well, you have to get a license if you want, which is
okay,
accredited to researcher. You have to attend a course because you are dealing with personal information. Here, dealing with personal information, public information is very well safeguarded. You cannot access anywhere. You have to access what we call safe pods with no internet access. You need to prepare, for instance, for this data that you were asking, I have to apply. I have to, first of all, complete the course and being an approved researcher, which also involve sitting a test and pass it, of course. But then I have to present a project explaining why I want to access this data, why is of public interest. They contact the data owner. If they authorize me, they give me access to these pods where there is no internet, no nothing, and I can access the data. They give me a copy of the data, of course, and I can run all my statistical analysis, whatever I plan to do.
okay,
But I have to book time on these pods. One is located at London School of Economic and Political Science, and there is different universities that we can go and access the data.
yeah,
There is a lot, but it's very well safeguarded. They're very jealous of the data, very conscious. There's a lot of penalty for misusing data.
yeah. I mean, yeah, as far as I know, in the US, we have like almost no safeguards on that data. I mean, it's anonymous, um, but yeah, you can just go download it. I guess that so the reason I think as you already guessed, I was asking is I just think that would be a neat way to like follow up is to sort because I'm sure it's sort of an initial condition, right? Everybody's economic status that
Yeah,
really would affect things. So if you ever decided to make things less general, that would be a
absolutely. Yeah.
great idea.
Well, that was the next step. There's one piece of information that I'm accessing is called PAT, which is Public Attitudes Tracker. This organized by the ONS,
Interesting.
and it's pretty much about everything. There is one dedicated green consumption. And when I say green consumption, I want to clarify it's not just food. When we talk about green consumption, we choose about the choices that we do about energy, transport, household product, home heating, insulation, heat pumps. It's
Hmm.
not just food. I mean, which is the other beauty of this model. Not that it can apply to any type of green consumption. And it's really good data. It's micro data. That's why, because they're so jealous, because they do publish a lot of general headline information, which is the aggregated data, no?
Okay.
Um, but to access the micro data, like Mario, myself, or Sean, with your address, with the survey question, no, your income, your status, your profession, your house, everything. You to access that is really good for a researcher, but they're very, very jealous, and you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Even when we aggregate data, when we present data, you can infer personal data through tables, and they're also very conscious. You have to get approval of the data that you're aggregating before making it public.
Okay.
But yeah, there is, and that's the idea. No, the next step, as you rightly said, is to go from a theoretical model to something with data, and hopefully the gold standard in science, which is prediction. No,
Hmm.
who doesn't like to make a predict something and then it happens?
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me about your model.
Thank
The
you for
model
inviting me.
the model will be linked below in the description, and any articles related will be linked there as well.